Firstly, hats off to Lexi and the organising committee for putting on the conference, Tourism, Hospitality and Events Conference, which is great. So well done, Lexi, and thank you for inviting me to be your first speaker. It's funny, with the initials, when it said T.H.E. and sort of, I was thinking it's the conference, but it's Tourism, Hospitality and Events. I work, as you rightly say, for T.H.E. Scotland, and it's a charity that's been around for 28 years. I'm so glad they didn't call it the Scottish Hospitality Industry Trust, because that would be a very different thing. Not just waking you up after lunch, but T.H.E. Scotland, as you said, I mean, we're a Scottish trust. I've actually been with T.H.E. Scotland for 18 years now. And it's funny, I still picture many years ago, over 30 years ago, being at Sheffield Polytechnic, sitting where you're all sitting, kind of thinking, well, what's the industry all about? What can I do? But I think you're far better versed now as far as what the industry is about because of all the transparency, the social media and everything else. But just in the next 25 minutes or so, I'll give you a bit of a flavour about how we work within the industry, but also how we can help yourselves as part of the industry. But pleasingly, speaking to one or two of you already, it's great that a few of you are familiar with T.H.E. Scotland and have taken advantage of what we do. Because we've been started, as it says, in 1994. This was very much the time when education was very different in Scottish colleges and universities. People couldn't afford to come to universities and colleges to do education. And so T.H.E. was really set up to give bursaries out to, in essence, pay for your fees, to make sure that the industry got great people going to great educational places, leaving the industry, leaving the education to join the industry, and the industry would get a well-motivated, well-trained, enthusiastic person with an affinity to hospitality. Now that was all very good back in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, but I found when I first started with T.H.E. Scotland in 2005 that we used to help many colleges and many students and many universities, but it was very difficult keeping track of what people did at the end of their course. So I'd stand up in front of industry audiences saying we've raised X amount tonight at our big fundraising dinner. We've given it to, back in those days, 42 educational establishments in Scotland. But some people were teaching English as a foreign language in China, some people joined the army, some people doing the Marks and Spencer's graduate program. So it was quite hard to knit the fundraising to pure education. So in 2005, we started the scholarship program, which I'll tell you all about. Which really is an opportunity to explore and experience something. Before I get into that, the way we actually raise funds to do our events and to pay for the scholarships, as we now call them, is you allow us to do lots of fun things, whether it's the Great Wall of China, whether it's Machu Picchu. There's 18 people climbing Kilimanjaro in October this year, and this is all in the name of raising funds to help and support the future talent of the industry. Very pleasingly this morning I was at the Chester Hotel with one of our Grampian committees, because we have 87 volunteers that are our Grampian committee, our Highland Dinner committee, our golf committee, our Christmas party committee. Most people spend their lives trying to get away from committee work, but actually in our context it's people really wanting to support the future of the industry and getting together and putting on fantastic events which raise money, which enables us to give out the scholarships. So one or two of you, I think, have helped at our Grampian event, but for those that want some experience and to get paid for it and to have a fun night out with lots of food and drink, the 15th of September at Meldrum House is where our Grampian event's going to take place this year. So I expect to see Lexi and a few of her colleagues helping out on the night or being guests of ours as well. But I suppose the most exciting thing really from this perspective is the scholarships are fully funded. We pay for you to go to Lausanne or to Disney or to the Savoy or Gleneagles or the River Cafe or wherever it might be, depending on your development thoughts. And so when it comes to the stage you're at, whether you're year 2, 3 or even year 4, it's a great opportunity just to explore the industry in its broadest sense, because our scholarships range from florists within the industry to equestrian centre, to chefs, to managing directors, to sustainability managers, and we pay for all this once you've applied online, just so that we can get a feel about what would be the best development for you. And so from a student perspective, if you're thinking about, well, I want to explore Michelin dining, I want to explore resorts, or I want to explore theatres and cinemas and leisure or travel, you might not want to sign up for that lock, stock and barrel, but on average our scholarships are about a week in duration because they're a taster of just experiencing and ideally learning from the best of the best. And it gives you an opportunity to dip your toe in the water before you maybe sign on the dotted line of where you see your career to go. Because I think it's very important from a student perspective, if you're best to find out early whether you like something or not, as opposed to waiting till you sign up on the dotted line and then you're kind of stuck with that for a while. Just a quick anecdote on that. My parents used to live in a school. I was sort of brought up in Edinburgh schools, and we used to have visiting rugby teams and visiting preachers, visiting you name it. They used to come to our house. I was really keen on joining the Royal Marines back in those days. I was quite fit back then, and I was offered a 5-year commission, but that would have meant I was 23 when I was able to leave, which to me at 18 seemed like a lifetime away. But one of the guys that used to help my mum do all the cooking for all these visiting people that came to our house was a guy called Dave, who was a chef from Bedford Barracks in Edinburgh. And I got talking to him, and I loved the hospitality angle of what he did. And that actually took me to Sheffield, as opposed to going to Lympstone or Arbroath or wherever the commandos were in those days. So it's funny how your decisions are informed by things that you do. But I think keeping your minds open and learning from some great teaching in the university here is a good way of informing what your decisions will be. Because time does fly quite quickly, as you all know. The scholarships, I should add, are from 18 years of age to, let's say, 75 years of age. So it's continuous professional development. It doesn't just mean that they're for young people. Because I think whenever you go for an interview, whatever stage you're at, people will ask, what have you done to develop yourself over the last 1 year, 5 years, or even just what have you done recently? And so many people I've met over the years have done nothing since they left university. And they're behind the curve when it comes to people that have kept their learning up to speed, because I'll give you the reasons for that a little bit later in this talk. Because Lexi challenged me with what the title should be and said, oh, just tell us what the skills will be for the 2023 and beyond. And I wish I had a crystal ball that would give every sort of indication on that. But as you can imagine, during the pandemic, our live scholarships were quite curtailed because we couldn't send people to Geneva, we couldn't send people to Disney, we couldn't fly people to London. In fact, we couldn't travel, none of us could travel anywhere. I think it's quite funny, the last couple of years we were told we're not allowed to go more than about 5 miles from home. Now we can't afford to drive more than 5 miles from home, it's so expensive. But like all organisations, we had to think about, well, what are we going to do? And it's interesting, because Hit Scotland is a Scottish charity, and we're reliant on these events that we do, which we now do 22 events in Scotland. We do one in London, mainly because it gives us a chance to get out of Scotland, but we also think there's a lot of Scots in London, or people that would like to be Scottish, we feel. And the international things which are fun, like Kilimanjaro and Machu Picchu and that sort of stuff. And so we really were challenged as far as, well, what can we do? And so we converted our scholarships. We thought, well, everything's going online now. To me, it's not the same experience, but you know, it's a needs must. We have to do something. So in 2020, we budgeted for 1,000 online scholarships in management, leadership, and supervisory skills, and we put it out there. And we got 2,088 applications. And so we thought, well, we can't turn down people in a pandemic, given that we're there to support the industry. So we actually accepted pretty much every application, and we ended up with just under 2,000 people online. Now, I appreciate a lot of people on furlough, and a lot of people were at home, so they kind of didn't have an awful lot of choice what to do. But the success and the feeling that enabled people to get away from isolation, of well-being, a feeling that they were part of a community. We had 80 cohorts of 25 people, and that really engendered a massive big community within the industry, which I think, again, from a student's perspective, if you join our vast industry, the community that you'll enjoy is extensive. And even today, I've met people who've been previous scholars that it's lovely seeing again, because you think, you know, because of that connection, you know, we're all in the same boat. But it worked very well because the online opportunity, we did it again at the beginning of this year, and just last week finished with 1,620 people. So there's certainly an appetite for online learning. But I can't stress enough, live learning I think is most exciting. That's why it's great and very generous of you to be here in person today. But it also means that from September this year, probably actually at our Grampian dinner on the 15th of September, we will launch next year's scholarship. So through your great lecturing teams or through your businesses, make sure you are aware of that and take advantage of that, because as I say, it's very simple to apply because we're not recruiting you. We literally just want to make sure if we're sending you somewhere, you've got the wherewithal, or you're maybe working in a part-time capacity, so anything you learn you can put into practice again. And that's really open to anybody within the room here. But as far as skills for 2023, the industry's always had challenges. I mean, throughout my career, the image of the industry has always been a challenge, recruitment has been a challenge, chefs have been a challenge, we've had Australian bar staff, we've had Spanish waiters, we've had, you know, one of the benefits of our industry about being so mobile is almost slightly come back to haunt us because people are mobile and they don't necessarily stay in one organisation at any one time. And the pandemic, of course, didn't help any of us. Across the whole of the UK during the pandemic, there was 1.3 million migrant workers that left Britain. They just went home, and because of visas particularly, are finding it very difficult to get back into either education or industry. And in addition to that, the industry lost 355,000 people just because they thought, I don't want to work in this industry anymore. So they left furlough and just left the industry completely, which is a huge workforce to kind of get back into place. And I thought, well, you know, if you're on furlough and you're having barbecues every day, you're mucking about, you know, you're getting 80% of your salary. So is it a real hardship? But it came home to me, if you're a frontline, let's say, waiting staff, and your pay is docked by 20% and you don't get any tips, then all of a sudden it's make or break whether you can pay your rent, you know, and basic bills. So, you know, the industry image wasn't helped by the furlough and everything that had preceded before that. The industry has grown massively since the credit crunch of 2009, but maybe terms and conditions haven't kept in line with that. And I always think from an industry perspective, if you're a, let's just say, for example, a housekeeper in Premier Inn, you might be on the same salary as if you're the housekeeper at Gleneagles. And so the motivation to work in different places or go through the industry has to be more clear-cut, I would suggest, from the industry perspective. But it's your fresh thinking and your skills that come out of RGU that will actually drive that change for sure. When it comes to thinking about skills, I think any great strategy in anything to do with hospitality, particularly maybe marketing, is starting with the customers and working back. And it's the same with the skills, rather than saying we must have silver service skills. I'd challenge any of you, when the last time you actually went for a silver service dinner was probably quite a long time ago. I go out a huge amount, and I can't remember silver service for 10, 20 years. So, you know, if you're thinking about what's right for the customer, think about what a modern customer would want. And given that we had these 2,000 people last year, we thought, well, the best thing as far as finding out future skills is to ask the audience. And we got a huge amount of feedback. And this is the kind of feedback that came back from our 2,000 online scholars. Now, these are all pretty broad titles, but this was actually the genuine feedback that came back from 2,000 leaders and managers and supervisors across the whole piece of the industry, all the different sectors within the industry. And it was quite interesting, actually, because under leading by example, there's things like assertiveness and self-awareness. There's things like emotional intelligence and unconscious bias. So sort of new words that certainly weren't around when I was at Sheffield Poly back in the 80s. So these sorts of things and the teaching that you're getting here and your own learning suddenly become very important, because these were all from industry people suggesting what they didn't have in industry. And one of the biggest things which surprised me on the decisiveness was things like smart goal setting. I thought, to be honest, smart goal setting was an absolute given, that everybody knew what SMART goals were. A lot of people, majority of people within the industry, had never heard of SMART objectives. And so these sorts of acronyms, which again, I kind of thought people grew up with, were really lacking within the industry, which gave us quite a shot in the arm as far as just making sure our scholarships are going to be actually at the level and in line with what people actually need, as opposed to maybe what they want. The leadership skills were throughout, but things that came under that were trust, engagement, having crucial conversations with people, building rapport, and conflict management. Now again, topics that I'm sure you look at here, but these are all the subsections of these, which is just showing the people element of it. And it might not just be managing your team, but it might be managing an outsourced food and beverage department. It might be managing an asset manager. There could be many different ways of looking at this, which are, again, are terminology. I'll come to what I think is a crucial point, is that our industry is filled with people that love to say, I'm the managing director of XYZ now, I'm the chief executive of this, and I started off washing the pots and pans when I was 15 or 16, almost a bit like a badge of honour, that's what we did. We all have to start somewhere, and many of us do start with jobs such as those in our early days. But these days, for the industry, I'd much prefer people who are aware of strategic asset management. They knew what capital venturing meant. They knew about strategic social media. They knew about human resource management at a high level. Those are the sort of skills, not least finance, that I would like industry people to have, rather than saying I could wash the pots when I was 15. Because the industry is incredibly professional now. And as you know, you can be very, very responsible at a very, very young age. And so these sorts of things are absolutely crucial for your skills for the future. Because if you don't know what asset management means, there'll be many people that will know what that means. And it's a different way of looking at business and industry. Performance is one of life's assurances alongside taxes and a few other things. But influencing and inspiring others came from that. Delegation, effective feedback and coaching conversations. Because of the lack of people that are either have left the shores of the UK or left the industry, the 355,000, looking after people and being able to speak to people and coaching and influencing and supporting again becomes absolutely crucial for year 2023 plus. I would say it's always been crucial, but the pandemic has certainly shone a light on that. I was at something in Northern Ireland a month ago, and it was interesting. In a sincere sense, a senior general manager was talking about just didn't have the people queuing up at the door to come in and work in his place. Whereas before, if he got rid of somebody, there'd be 20 people at the door. And I knew what he was trying to say, but it almost suggested that you didn't really care about the staff and, you know, lose one person, there'd be 20 people to replace that. Now, lose one person, the team has to adapt because there's nobody waiting at the door. Give you one bit of maybe reassurance though. At the moment in the UK, there's 30,000 vacancies in our industry. But in retail, there's 49,000 vacancies in retail. In healthcare and the care profession, there's 79,000 vacancies. And you might well have seen the headlines for haulage and lorry drivers. There's 100,000 vacancies. So whilst our industry is very precious to us and we're very passionate about it, you know, in the scheme of other sectors, we've gone a long way to go, but you know, there's a lot of other professions that actually are really looking at big, big shortages. But the trouble for us is that means that people that might have thought about hospitality might be wowed into one of those other areas. So again, the industry has to be absolutely front and center to make sure it's attractive for people in the room. Strategic thinking, driving for results. This really came from the sort of senior leaders on the program. But I think what's really, really exciting but very different is technology and artificial intelligence. We're actually speaking to the National Robotarium, which is by chance based in Edinburgh at the moment, not to replace humans with robots, because that will never work in our industry, but to use technology to enhance and support aspects of our industry. If I stick with, strangely today it's all about housekeeping, robotic vacuum cleaners that can clean a room like this so that someone can look after other elements of the room. And if that just saves a fraction of time, again, back to managing costs and things, it allows people to do other, maybe more exciting things. So I can't stress enough that robots are never going to change our industry, but you'll experience yourself on your phone when you've done a smart check-in, when you've had a WhatsApp group when you arrive at a hotel and you don't have to go to front office to ask. All these things. If you think you're frightened about artificial intelligence or animatronics, Excel spreadsheets are a way of artificial or a form of artificial intelligence. So it's not quite as scary as having robots in the business, but the sort of things that you'll be asked to look at will be very, very different going forward. And so it's the skills that you learn here that are going to be absolutely massive. One bit of advice, if I may, for students when you are going for placements or for jobs, as I'm sure you do, but just to maybe make no assumptions, please make sure that you do your research of the business before you actually go for an interview. I used to work in quite a big resort property in the middle of Perthshire that had 55 departments. Used to interview a lot of people, and people would say, I'd say, what would you like to do at the hotel? They say, I'd just love to work here. I said, would you like to clean out the stables in the morning? Like, no, I want to work in the hotel. Would you like to work in the florist department? And we kind of went through this, and people just didn't know what they wanted to do. And so I could just urge the students, when you're going for jobs or going for placement interviews, have at least a flavour of what you would like to do, so that you can say, I'd like to work in sales, or I'd like to work in the finance department, or I'd like to work in food and beverage, because that makes it so much easier. Because again, if you don't do that, other people that have done their homework, they'll be knowledgeable about a business. And that is very, very important. But the nice thing about that, or the exciting thing about that, is you're absolutely in the driving seat. The industry needs well-trained, motivated, good people like yourselves. And so you can actually pick and choose anywhere that you would like to work. And so you very much can be on the front foot about that, and actually be very demanding on the question front as far as, what can you offer me? Pay is quite often reputed, pay is a housekeeping factor, we need to get paid for something. But more than that, development tends to float to the surface as far as people want to develop themselves and know they're going to be working for a company that will actually develop them. So you should be asking the companies what they can do for you, and where do they see you in the next 3 to 5 years? Because they'll ask you that question, which is a nightmare interview question. But if you can put it back to them saying, well, where am I going to be? And then you choose the company or companies that will actually look after you. Because I think there's unfortunately plenty of companies that will just want you as a body, but there'll be other places that will really look after you and develop you, because they need you to really maintain their business. A lot of places, which I'm sure you're fully aware of, it looks like it's a COVID protocol by maybe not being open Monday to Wednesday, or just having one service sitting. But more often than not, it's because of a staffing issue. It's actually not a COVID thing, it's because we haven't got the people to physically manage the business. And again, our industry isn't something that you can subcontract to another country or whatever else. You know, the hills and the food and the ladder and all the good things that we shout about with Scotland, you know, they are here to stay, which means we need people to look after that. The overriding thing, and this is sort of quite often mentioned in a very light fashion, but attitude and personality really do count. The amount of times, even just last week, with owners and senior people within the industry, they can train you the day-to-day skills, but it's your attitude, whether you want to work there or not, and personality that will shine through. I'd suggest that our industry can't afford to take people that don't want to work in it. So often it's been said about, you know, we're a transient workforce, you know, you can come and go, you can work in our industry till you get a proper job. I kind of think I'm doing a proper job, and I know a lot of people that do a proper job. And so 30 years ago, you know, I didn't think I was just going into a Mickey Mouse organisation. I went to places that developed me, that allowed me to grow. I took a few opportunities, but I think our industry just can't accept journey people that say, I'm going to do this until something else comes along. Because it's funny, I don't actually know what the answer to a proper job is. I wouldn't want to work in a shop on Boxing Day. I wouldn't want to work in a factory. I wouldn't want to work behind a screen all day, not speaking to people. That's my choice. And if it's your choice, that's great. But I think the opportunities that our industry, and not just hotels, but contract catering, where I started, you know, it gives all sorts. We're a very broad church. And I think now, thanks to Lexi, you know, you've got me and Hid Scotland as an extra supporter of helping you get to where you want to get to through the scholarships or just through advice generally. The one thing about being a 24/7 industry is we can't switch off. We're not like a jar of coffee that you can put in Tesco's. When I serve Lexi a cup of coffee, she not only gets the product, she gets the service, she gets the smile, she gets the personality, she gets my attitude, she gets my mood, whatever it is. It's something that we actually can't put into storage. Service and delivery are absolutely simultaneous in our industry. And the thing is, if you worked in a golf resort, once you've lost a tea time of 1 o'clock, you can't get it back. So if you don't sell it, then it's lost, it's gone forever. And so the one other plea, if I could make, because it's a Scottish trait, is that we sometimes are the worst sales prevention department industry in the world. We don't ask people if they want an extra gin and tonic. We don't ask people if they want to go and have an extra pudding or whatever it might be, because we're afraid of actually upsetting someone by being too pushy. At the resort I worked at, if people had dinner, bed and breakfast, they left and they said it was a great hotel, like to come back. If people went to the spa, went to the falconry, had dinner, bed and breakfast, and then got concierge to drive them to Edinburgh Airport, they absolutely were the best raving fans you could ever have. And that was because we'd told them, did you know we had this? Did you know we had that? To which people really responded to that sort of thing. So if you're on a placement, if you're working part-time, if you're working in the industry, please don't ever hold back about offering an extra product service, because your guests in the majority will want that. And again, using training restaurants, using lectures that you set up and all the great exhibition upstairs. I mean, some of the work there really is absolutely first class. You know, use the time and use the people to gain this confidence. And then you'll be, not only will you fly through the industry, you'll be a real asset to the industry. So in summary, you'll be pleased to hear, I mean, the industry is in great shape. It's not going to go away. It's a growing industry. It's a worldwide industry. But the industry really does need you. And I think, again, commend the team for putting on the 2-day, not only online tomorrow, but live today, just to inform your decisions, because the more you know about the industry, you'll know it's a very welcoming industry, very inclusive, but it needs people who are motivated with the current skills that you're getting from RGU. So good luck with the studies. I look forward to seeing you either on the 15th of September at the Meldrum House, either as a diner or working and getting paid, or online scholarships we'll actually launch them on that night. So it's a coup for Aberdeen, and we'll have a mixture of some online things, but the predominantly live ones will start taking place from next year. We have a conference on the first Thursday in February called our Talent Conference. Some of you have been to it before, but that's the day we actually give out the scholarships, and then we spend the rest of the year just working with your personal college, university and business diaries to actually sort out the travel, accommodation, whatever you need. So in addition to all the great things you're doing, please do take advantage of it, because we have a lot of fun raising money, doing the events which keep us all busy, but the most important thing is the right people benefiting from that. So many thanks for inviting me along, Lexi. These are all my contact details. If anyone wants to get in touch, have a peek at our website if you want to just see some of the dates, some of the events and some of the fun that we have. But good luck in your studies, careers, teaching, and I look forward to working with you into the future.
Well, no, thank you very much. I think we can all agree that is some wise words about what's important in the industry, and all the skills David's discussed today are key at any stage in our life, so students, graduates, throughout our careers. And he's extended a stay in Aberdeen this morning to speak to us, so I'd like to thank him again for that.
My pleasure.
So the next step in the conference, we're having a 30-minute refreshment break. I believe they're outside 124, which is on this level. And then we're back in here for 2 o'clock. 1:30. Sorry. What time is it? For the debate. So the topic for that is Aberdeen as a Destination 2023, Rejuvenation and Regeneration. So if you're interested, come along. Thank you for coming.
Is there any questions from anyone in the room before David?
Gentlemen,
No, I just said it.
thumbs up, all right. Thanks, Philip. Thumbs up to you too.
So you just, not so much about just reiterate what you said. First of all, thank you for emphasising finance. A number of the students here had to do a finance test for me yesterday, so that's why you did it.
Good choreography. That's
yeah. Very quick point. I mean, you said obviously the industry is in a state of flux for a variety of reasons. The message that we try to get to students is actually for this particular group, various years. There's never been a better time, I feel, for students to actually be getting ready to go into the hospitality, tourism, events industry. And you made the point about almost having confidence in what you can bring to the industry. Is that a kind of valid point just to kind of emphasise?
absolutely. I think it's one of the benefits of our scholarships is actually in Scotland, again, you know, people, it's not just Scottish people, people living and working and studying in Scotland, one of the biggest things is that we're very humble and we sort of hold back all the great things we do. And sometimes people go away on a scholarship and they get the confidence and they think, actually, what I am doing is at a really, really high level. For example, that might be that if someone's working in a restaurant, we might send them on a barista scholarship, and that would be to spend a week in the London Met Bar with the UK barista champion. And so, you know, that would be you're not there to work, you're there to sort of learn, so it would be but it'd be an experiential thing that you would do. And so when you come back to your workplace, you know, you've been immersed in everything, tea, coffee, and whatever else. So again, for a lot of people, that sort of injection of, this is what I'd like to do, because all our scholarships are led by yourselves. We don't dictate what you do. You tell us what you'd like to do. But it's that confidence element, because I think you're absolutely right. You can, when you're going and applying for jobs, you've got a huge amount to offer. The industry actually has to really sell itself to you. So you're in the driving seat, but therefore don't sort of sit back waiting to be told what to do. I would be much more on the front foot and say, this is what if I've done sort of 2, 3 or 4, you know, honours years, you're very, very valuable. And you must never forget that you're very valuable. So I can't imagine you'd ever go and say, give me the job, I want to be the restaurant manager today. And they say, what experience have you? Said, well, not a lot. But it's that confidence to, you can bring a huge amount to the industry, because it's changing dramatically. I don't want to sound like Grandad Cochrane, but, you know, I remember that when people were saying, oh, you can check in, you know, to a hotel on your phone, you know, and you're thinking that will never take off. You know, you can buy an airline ticket on your phone and turn up without any paper. You're thinking, you know, this won't happen. But the technology and the speed of change, and actually our industry is quite an early adopter of this. There's a lot of very modern technology that's happening. But with the skills and the education you've had, just to have that confidence to, you know, the industry will reward you actually the terms and conditions have massively improved because of that war for talent. But it's about you letting people know. I always like the expression, if you're good enough, you're old enough. You know, you don't have to be a managing director at 50. You can be an MD at 25, you know, if you're good enough. So age actually isn't a barrier. It's your competency matched with your confidence.
I would just like to say I was a recipient of a sponsorship about 8 years ago. So I was in my late 40s at that time, and it was a really easy process. And Hit Scotland were great, you know, throughout. And I was able to put a package together to suit me. I was a professional chef, and I went down to River Cottage, Hugh Fernley with a big stall. And then the second half of the package was a Shoreditch community project, which I was interested in. And you know, I would recommend it for anybody. Just go for it. The opportunities to shape your own career and have it fully funded, and you know, it was so easy. So you know, I was really, really grateful. Great company.
First rule of any speaking, it's always good to have your Auntie Sally in the room. She's, thanks, Sally. See you later. She's not my Auntie Sally. No, but no, we keep it as simple as possible, like that good old kiss analogy. You know, keep it simple, and it works. You know, that's the industry, and what we do don't need to be complicated. But I think the results are far-reaching. But again, it's the first step, which has to come from you. So, but thank you very much for listening, particularly after lunch, and I wish you well with the 2 days. Okay.